and and go live. All right, preparing to live stream, setting up the meeting. Here we go. Hey, welcome back everybody to the Doctor's Chat. What the health? We are back at it and better than ever. Dr. Greg Eckel here.
Dr. Jonathan Nadal.
And we are coming at you from the cosmos today, through the interwebs, right into your living room to sit here and chat about life is vibration. And boy, do we have a show for you. I'm fresh back from a Dr. Joe Dispenza event and super fired up. And this is one that is like near and dear to us. We've got, it really is the future of medicine, of where we're going, what we're doing. It's energy medicine. And in the past, Dr. Nadal, this has been called woo-woo medicine. What do you think about that?
I mean, if it works, let's do it. Who cares what it's called, right? But I mean, I think science is still trying to catch up with everything that we do. I mean, even Chinese medicine and acupuncture, but nowadays we got like quantum physicists that are sounding more like shamans, right? So it's
it is so true. I'm putting together a bioenergetics summit, which I'm super excited about, coming up here. It's going to launch in November of 2022. And I've been talking to 40 plus experts in different facets of it. And what I think we got to put away the woo-woo discussion. Like, it still has this moniker of, for energy medicine, is woo. And while I think we should embrace the woo, really, because we actually have now some really heavy, hardcore science showing freaking amazing things. I have out of UCSD, University of California, San Diego, so Dr. Hamel Patel. Now, I've gotten to hang out with Dr. Patel a few times. I've had dinner with him. He's doing research, coordinating it for Dr. Joe Dispenza, who we will talk about today, and also for Harry Massey and a company called Ness Health and Energy for Life. And I mean, this stuff will blow your mind. Like, it's non-local healing. It's programmed informatics in water that are cutting the viral cell replication in a petri dish. People are doing brain and heart coherent meditations, beaming love at cancer cells in an enclosed space, and the cancer cells are stopping replication. I mean, this stuff is getting published now, where non-locality, coherence healing, bioinformatics, and water. I mean, never in my lifetime, Dr. Nadal, would I'd be saying this, live on the interwebs. So let's, I'm excited to talk about it, but let's just back it up here, because, what are we talking about when we're talking energetics and this quantum? People throw quantum around, and maybe that gets a little woo-woo, right? But it's real. And we talk about matter, these physical forms, and then we talk about frequency. So it's kind of waves and particles, right? That's what we're talking about. Newtonian physics, which is, this physical matter world. Right. And then the quantum physics, which is more the energetic frequency world. How do we break this down? Now, I see you all out there listening. Don't glaze over, because we're gonna get into talking about matter, like particles, protons, and atoms along those lines, just to start, because I think it is important just to have some of the framework so that we have some language around what we're talking about here. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. I mean, and I think a fun way to think about it too, so when we think of matter created from atoms, Once we go to the subatomic particles, right, and we get into protons, neutrons, electrons, where quantum physics has gone to understand the energetic fields between them. So we've had to go even smaller and deeper to understand how they're having wider and more far-reaching impact. So it's almost like we had to dig deeper to expand further into the universe and understand what it's doing, which is amazing to think about, right?
It is. It actually, it gives me chills. It gives me chills. You know, uh, right. When you compress, so let's get into that. So protons and neutrons are kind of in the core of an atom.
Mhm.
And electrons, they carry a charge. And then we have positrons, which represent the anti-electrons and link the atom with its anti-self. So that right there starts to, I see you glazing over out there. Don't do that. Stick with us.
Yeah.
Well, if you really push down into an atom, like we feel like this is real, right? But all of the great traditions call this world that we're seeing right here the great illusion. And when you really get into, when you go into it, it's actually like there's a lot of space, right? Like I've heard it said, if you compressed all of the particles of the universe, you'd have like a grain of sand. So it's, you know, we have these things spinning around a core, but at the core, at the center of this atom, there really isn't anything there. Am I right with talking about that?
Yeah.
Which is, it's like mind blowing, right? Because when you can kind of, it feels real. I mean, this feels really real.
Yeah.
Um,
Just pinch yourself. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. Even
It,
in Chinese philosophy, like it's not who cares about the cup, it's the space in the cup. Ha, that serves its function.
mm.
Yeah. And what you fill it with, right?
Right. And there's this this component of the field, the biofield. It's the resonance or the electrical charges around, and I think magnets are a good way to think about this, right? You have a magnet with you remember you put those metal shavings down on the plate in, you know, ninth grade physics class, and you know the positive charge versus positive, they would all line up around it. And then you flip it around and then the positive and negative come together. Well, that's what we're talking about field. We can even feel it if we like rub our hands together,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
then pull it apart. You can feel that energy between the hands. Well, we're now able to measure that stuff and really get into this particle versus wave, and or maybe they both exist at the same time, right? Which gets really trippy.
Mm-hmm.
But so each of the atomic units, when they're moving together, they're creating their own speed, and these electrons are circulating around there. That's what creates the field. And so that component, the frequency, what happens in the frequency actually then gets compressed down into the matter. We are actually a slow moving frequency. So we're the densest form, right? This mattered form. And that's the part that I find so exciting, because as this research comes out and as we start feeding back basically consciousness awaking to itself, without getting too far out there right out of the gate. But like I said, I'm just fresh back from a week-long meditation retreat where you can start materializing here in this mattered world by changing in the frequency. So in the field that happens before it comes down into the physical form. Now, how do we unpack that?
I think
That's, yeah,
that
go for it.
that notion as above, so below, and as below, so above, where it really we are kind of just a mirror of what's going on at the greater level is a nice esoteric but nice open way of catching that, right? I mean, there's nothing that we do in a sense that isn't reflected in nature somehow, right?
Yeah.
Every physiological process, all of it. As a fun side note, I we recently bought a prayer plant, right? They're cute, they do their
Yeah.
thing. I didn't know why it was called a prayer plant, but I was looking at it in the afternoon and realizing that the leaves were nice and relaxed. And then in the evening, they were up and we water it. So I'm like, wait a minute.
Hey,
Is it because the leaves do that?
huh,
And then it turns out that, yeah, during the day, they're like that to capture more humidity and moisture. And through different bioelectric properties and anti-gravity hormones and things going on, it moves it up, right? And it's to catch water and bring it down into its body. So I just feel like it's kind of a similar thing
interesting.
where we're just designed to be this antenna to receive that which is happening above. And we are already designed to do it. We just got to figure out how to optimize it,
I
right?
love it. Actually, the other thing that I think about that is also to collect sunlight, right? The
Mhm.
frequency of the sun to create the photosynthesis that then creates the energy within the plant. The same thing for us humans. There's this saying, you are in the universe is in you. And we've been saying it as Chinese medicine practitioners for eons. And the first, basically, I've been a meditator for 30 plus years. But the first time I actually experienced that was in one of these week-long meditations of actually woke up as the universe, that spiral that you see from the stars in just waking up in that spaciousness of that is truly us. Like we are the universe. The universe, it's not just a saying, it's the truth.
Mhm.
And to be able to wake up to that and actually feel it on a cellular level was super exciting to me. As you can see, I'm bubbly with energy as a result. But that happened, within the last year, and I've been meditating for 30 years, and that never occurred. So to have that and to be actually to share it, that's why we wanted to call this, life is vibration. And in the frequency, I mean, we're seeing because of not because of, but in light of the research, we're now being able to explain what maybe the mechanisms of actions are. And my understanding of it now is the closer to source of unity consciousness, you think about, this is where it becomes, scientists become shamans, right? Not that I'm calling myself a shaman, but in the science world, when you start talking about unity consciousness of we're returning to one, in the beginning, there was nothing. And then basically in consciousness, the question arose, is there anything else? That was the one, the two, the three, the 10,000 things. Like we have this philosophy in Chinese medicine, which I so love that we share that background and that beginning around an understanding or a language around how to speak into this. And now we've got the science showing like, hey, we're actually able to measure this now. So on that, these charges, we're talking about frequencies. So as we move back into a unity consciousness of the one, we realize and wake up that we actually are the creators. We have a responsibility to get in touch with that which is us, right? It's going back, there's all of these ancient symbols. This is where I get a little ADD talking about it, because we can go in so many different directions on where do we take this conversation. But, there's a saying, I am another you, you are another me. And in the one, we are that mirror image. I've actually taken to speaking with patients now around, in this reality where we're just pretending to be separate, right? It's all here set up for our learning and our awakening. When we can tap into this, we get some of the most potent results, where I think in the Artesian or Cartesian model, the Newtonian physics realm, which they say, well, matter to matter, it takes forever to make change when you're dealing with matter to matter. But once you realize you can get into this kind of no time, no thing, no body, no where, we can go to the vastness because it's us. Like, we can even do it right now if we want. Like we can close our eyes for a minute, take a breath into our hearts and experience space in front of you as far as your mind can go. and go even further. And that's just forward. Now go out to your sides as far as your mind can go. And don't forget to breathe here, but go a little bit further and then go behind you with a breath as far as you can go. And then above and below with that breath, even further, now just a little bit further, where you think, oh, I'm at the edge. No, just go a little bit further. That space is actually us. Like you've just created that within your own mind with your breath. And we have access to that. Like that, I feel like, infinity, they weren't messing around with this concept of infinity. Mm-hmm. Where like you really wrapped that together of like, we can just go out to the edge of the universe and then come right back into ourselves, of like that loop of consciousness, awakening to consciousness of it's you, and me. It's all of us together. And that's the vastness of it is so beautiful, which it is mind blowing. All right.
Well said. Can I please share a quote that I may have shared before, but it's so perfect.
Yes.
It's called the field of energy, and out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Right?
Is that Rumi?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that is beautiful. Yeah.
It's fitting.
It's kind of like what springs forth all creativity, the poets, the songwriters, the artists, like that aspect of, I think now more than ever, we need to really tune into those frequencies of abundance, of love, of joy, that we actually can create it within us, right? What we're seeing in our world in disarray and chaos and just there's darkness, right? I mean, you can tune into that because it's everywhere. It gets, it's basically sent to us through the airwaves on advertising and mainstream media to put us into a limbic or a reactionary phase. When we're in survival mode, there's no way for us to expand or to kind of dip into that divine space that we just created a moment ago, because we're in survival mode. Like our first tenet is don't die and longevity, right? And so when you're in a stressed response, it's stay alive. Well, you're not going to be dipping in the divine when you're thinking the saber-toothed cat is coming to eat you. So we need to actually manufacture that space for ourselves in creating that sanctity, that peace, that deep peace, because it's not coming from outside of us. And we see what's representative. There is internal chaos that's getting reflected out into the mattered world because people are under stress. They're under, for good reasons. And it's also our responsibility to take that power back and say, enough already. Let's start creating the world the way that our hearts know and desire. And that's where this life is vibration component is. We get to tune into whatever level we want to, right? We have free will. And the beauty of what we want to do and where we're going with the doctor's chat and what the health and in our clinical practice is really around how do we help people realize, like, we haven't been taught how powerful we truly are, what we're capable of, Yeah. And so that's an exciting place to be, where when you get above this mattered realm and you kind of go back back into the frequency, when you get into that quantum field, it's limitless possibilities. Like you can go, it's not just predetermined. When you're in matter, the physical form, this is the slowest waveform that we've got. That's where we're at. And why things, when you're in your body and on the planet, where it could take forever to make change. Like, you know, if you're trying to lose weight or you have a health condition, you have depression, anxiety, like it can take forever to create change from matter to matter, because there's, you know, you go from point A to point B, there's time involved with that in this physical form. So if we go upstream, get back up, like a lighten up, right? So the waveforms are, you know, we can only see this much of all of the waveforms. And I think it's much easier these days to understand that when you have like a freaking master computer in your palm, and this information is going on a waveform. So there's information packets on a waveform that goes to space and comes back down, and then the receiver, which is the phone, interprets it, right? Or for us older folks, radio waves, where you're like turning the dial to get into the receiver, which we are the receivers here, folks, gets tuned to hear the signal. So the components that I wanted to share today is really around life as vibration, of like, what are we doing for our receivers? Like these bodies of ours, one, magnificent, miraculous, amazing. And do we appreciate them? You know, or are we taking them for granted? You know, of like, you know, I talk to the kids and, you know, high school has started and it's like, oh, it's another day. Because they're basically, you know, 95% of our thoughts, which we know are the same ones we had yesterday. And if we're expecting something different to change, it's no wonder folks get depressed and anxious. Is like they know what's coming.
Yeah.
Or do you?
and on that note, you know, I just the brilliance and how infinitely more powerful our bodies and brains and consciousness are than those supercomputers. So if it's at all amazing what your cell phone is doing, just know that your body is infinitely more attuned to that piece. Yeah.
Well, and it's that, I think it's the wild and the unknown, the unpredictable. So the component that is, I think, sometimes a little bit hard to grok is, you know, we want predictability as a species, but predictability honestly is boring. But also predictability took us a spaceship to the moon, because we could project, you know, in time and space, how to actually launch something from planet Earth with all the atmospheric gravity and get it to the moon and land there and then get them back. That's actually pretty miraculous, but that also took time and a lot of energy, where versus this other reality, which also is existing now. There are multiple, like the multiverse, right? It's not just a computered thing, right? They're actually extracting what's coming out of the sciences and putting in, kind of incorporating it into these boxes. But the multiverse is, there are limitless possibilities. If you're not liking something in your life, guess what? You can change it. You know, while it's a lot harder when you're in the mattered world, physical plane, but if you start getting back into that expansiveness, the no body, no thing, no time, no where, you basically got to drop your ego at the door and get into this limitless sense of self, where we are all connected and it is one entity. And if you get back into that source, like I basically have a working premise right now that all disease is separation from the one, separation from source. And it may be there to wake us up as a teacher, as a gift, as a wake-up call. I'll just put that out there on the table.
Totally. And you know what? Our bodies, because you made me think, I mean, so during dreams, while we're sound asleep, our bodies take us to that timeless, formless place to heal not only our physical bodies, but even to work through emotions. Or
Mm.
even if you've ever thought of an idea like something to fix or figure out, and then you wake up and you got the solution, right? So whether it's working through trauma, figuring out circumstances, or healing the body, we're doing it at night while we sleep. It's almost like, all right, whether we like it or not, we're going to have to get you out of this little time bubble to actually get things done, right? So it's,
Yes.
I think bridging that subconscious world with our conscious intentions is a very important thing. It's kind of a call to arms for what you're speaking of.
Thank you for that, because it is, you can see these spontaneous remissions or these miraculous cures, and you wonder, how in the world does that happen? Right? I just witnessed thyroid tumors go away in 2 days. 3.5 centimeter tumor gone. Folks come in wheelchairs and leave walking. They haven't been able to walk for 20 years. They have, spinal cord lesions that are healed. Well, how in the world? You'd think that would take a long time to heal. Well, yes, in a mattered to mattered world, in this physical form, slowest wave form there is, it will take a while. But if you get yourself at a higher level of vibration, higher level, well, what does that mean? Certain emotions have frequencies. They're just frequency packets. So, what is it that your brain, it's a goal achieving machine, basically. It wants to prove whatever your reality, like I've got a lot of evidence over here of how things are. I always ask my patients, like, well, if you like your evidence, then just stick with it. Like, there's nothing for us to work on here. If you are enjoying the suffering, then by all means continue to suffer. Like, you get the choose to what you're doing.
Right.
If you're not liking that, then maybe we take a different approach, right? Like, let's just get curious, or maybe let's do some experiments with this new quantum stuff that we're talking about. Well, how do you do that? You drop the VR headset of the different picture of what you're looking at, and you put on a new lens. Well, all right, how do we do that? We do that, we are practitioners of Qigong, which is energy work. There's meditation, there's contemplation. There's a lot of different paths that can get you there. So it's not the same path really for anyone, I would say.
It's important to find your path though, and walk it. It does manifest differently for everybody. But the more we can increase the levels of consciousness altogether, the faster we're going to get there. And even something as simple as instincts. Like when we think of that, kind of tap on the shoulder, that little idea. I mean, the more you listen to it, the more it's correct and the more it appears, right? And when it comes to instincts, it's as if it's utilizing all of this integrated consciousness for its own understanding, and is protective and adaptive, but it kind of functions on its own. And I'm mentioning instincts because I want to pair instincts with greater intention around what we want our instincts to focus on, right? And in this case, healing, right? So it's part of what we do besides physically in clinic, is also just changing the framework on how our patients are thinking about their health or disease and how to get them there, right?
I love it. You said an awesome word, intention, right? And when we're talking about chi or energy, we know energy flows where attention goes. So what your intention, we actually have incorporated now into our procedures with folks, of speaking into, like, what do we want this procedure to accomplish? So what's our intentions for the day? And are we maximizing placebo? Maybe. But you know what? There is the component. If we could bottle placebo, we would beat all of Western medicine. I mean, hands down, like the results that you get with that. So maybe I am talking about bottling that, or maybe it's intentional medicine is maybe a new term that we're inventing here. It is our intention to heal. Like, our innate intelligence is whole. And, the body knows how to heal itself. That's one of the basic tenets in naturopathic and Chinese medicine, is the body knows how to heal itself. So perhaps instead of getting into this adversarial relationship with our bodies or with nature, maybe we get a little bit more in tune and quiet that chatter, the fear, the mind, and get into, well, actually, what is it that we're looking to create? I mean, we're intentionally stating we want to help people gain brain and heart coherence so that they can create from their heart spaces, so that we realize heaven on earth much quicker than we ever dreamed possible. So you can interpret that however you want, but that is my intention, of what I've come to the planet to do and to help. So that's what I want to start speaking into more. But that intention, what does that do? It laser focuses the energy, and the energy will go there. So if you're always focused on your illness or disease process, or, on things that are outside of your body, really, that's why we say we don't treat disease, right? We treat heart-centered human beings moving through time and space. Well, there's intentionality around that. We're treating whole dynamic people. And so with that comes we have the kind of the universal intelligence and organization on our side with that. And you can create changes. I mean, we've had folks with Alzheimer's that couldn't do 1 + 1 math within 30 minutes after a procedure, rattling off multiplication factors. You can't really explain that in a Western medical approach, Newtonian physics, matter to matter. But if you go up into this energetic space where you're getting above a frequency that is closer to source, which is closer to one, where we basically started from, you take time out of the equation, and you can get instantaneous, miraculous cures. Are we going to claim that? No, we're not going to claim that. I hope one day we can claim it. We get some research behind that, but I want to see more and more of those. I mean, why isn't the expectation that we're seeing more miracles every day?
Yeah. Let's bring it there. And then, so with that, how do we dance right back into this human biofield, right? Like, how are we going to, what do we have that can help upregulate that or support that, right?
Yeah. So what do we have? We have this mind-body medicine. What we're showing in with meditation is there is an epigenetic change occurring for people. We're showing there's a protein, gene that manufactures proteins called serpine A5. This gene is potently anti-inflammatory. We know inflammation underlies 95% of chronic illness right now. And so we're showing with getting into, and we can measure this with brainwave activity. If you get into a gamma state, which is a high activity of brainwave activity, but it's all of the waves of the mind, of the brain, all in a very coherent waveform. When you look at it, some radiologists, physicians will look at it and think the person's having a seizure. But when you actually talk to the person afterwards, they said, oh no, I was actually in bliss. I was in ecstasy. Like there was no thing, no one, nobody, no time, just the one of just being in wholeness, completeness. And we can now measure that on brain scans. And we have a WAVI, we do EEG in our offices. We're looking at those brain scans. And so, we can actually measure these states of being. And, I think meditation sometimes is an intimidating word. This is not just sitting lotus-legged and still on your mat. Meditation takes multiple forms, and it's I think one definition that I recently heard is knowing oneself. So in a meditative state is knowing oneself. So it doesn't matter, like we think like, oh, it can't be thinking. It's like, no, it's actually you can be thinking, because everybody does, but if you're getting into those negative thought processes, those loops, the dangerous neighborhood that we all go into by ourselves, but shouldn't, it is quickly correcting the negative self-talk or those spirals that we get into, or just acknowledging like, oh, there it is again, grist for the mill, as one of my teachers, Ram Dass, taught me as a young high schooler. So that's one component. That one is free and available to everyone, right? We do have, then there's all kinds of technology coming out to help us get there as well. PEMF, PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequencies, low-level laser therapies, LLLT. That one just rolls off the tongue. What have you seen with those technologies in clinic?
Especially when we use them with the acupuncture or during any of the procedures, I mean, a significant increase in like reducing inflammation and pain. But even overall, like, at least I can feel it, like sometimes like a slight warmth and awareness to the area. It's almost like, well, it is kind of an electromagnetic enveloping of healing energy that you can program to a specific frequency, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so those different frequencies, like we have the RS Pro device that has 7 different channels with different hertz frequencies. So frequencies is just how many modulations are in there. Those are showing different effects in the body. We also have acupuncture, one of the ancient technologies on frequency, changing frequency in the body, where they have done, I love some of the early research was to debunk like nothing is happening here, right? And there's a point below the knee called stomach 36, and a smarty pants radiologist in New Jersey said, okay, I'm going to do a functional MRI. I'll pull a real acupuncturist in on a real person. We're going to measure that person's body. We're going to measure the brain, and I'm going to show there's nothing happening with this, right? It's total sham. And we know where the stomach is. It's nowhere near the knee, right? It's in your belly. Acupuncturists did stomach 36. The region of the brain that lit up actually controlled stomach function. Go figure. And so now he's like, banking on NIH dollars on mapping the acupuncture points and showing like, if you miss an acupuncture point by a millimeter, which is like the hair, like a hair follicle, you don't get that response in the brain or in the electrical activity of the body. Well, what is going on there, right?
I think it has a lot to do with fascia as well, right? Like we know that all the tiny fibers and networks in all the fascia in our body, there are different metallic properties along it. And I mean, when we put metal in there with the needles, we're like resetting the conductor. I mean, we are electromagnetic beings just floating around in a skin suit. And I think acupuncture is a good way to plug in some fresh antennas and reset the message.
I so agree. And it makes me think of like the body as a battery, positive and negative charges, right? We have takes different substances in that help provide those gradients, let's say. We know around the cell, the energy in the cell, it would light up, countries with energy, as it's mind-boggling where we are as a species today in this scarcity mindset of, we have so many renewable resources out there. And to think we haven't been able to figure that out yet. Just getting back from Niagara Falls, where Nikola Tesla worked with Westinghouse to create the first AC current, the alternating current came out of there. And I didn't know that, actually. They created with the falls, with the water movement, the alternating current came out of Niagara Falls, New York. And so to have the Nikola Tesla's, kind of footprint there was really, exciting for me, because it's like we're just waking up to our full potentials of, the energy is within us. It's all around us. And we have this beautiful sun in the middle of our system that is just forever pumping out energy. We eat the sun's energy. We, from our plants, from our animals, it is, it's pretty remarkable, actually.
It is, absolutely. Okay.
Well, so we talked about pulsed electromagnetic frequency, low level lasers, acupuncture. What other modalities are really working on harnessing this, more the quantum, the energetic aspect of what we're doing?
Well, there is that song modulated laser, right?
Yes.
Yes, which is, I mean, it's photoacoustically biomodulated, right?
Yeah.
And that has been a game changer. I mean, it's kind of mind blowing in what it's done. Even that one patient, not long ago, where we only did a certain portion of the procedure, like the intranasal portion, okay,
Right.
Parkinson's, and usually that's just a piece of it. There's got to be an IV and all that, but just the intranasal portion, and yet we still guided this laser throughout the brain and spinal cord, and some of the changes were like remarkable, even more so than and this was within a week or two. Every patient's sensitivity is different, but there's something about that laser that's doing a lot of the work. One thing is the actual cellular mechanisms, that like the matter that's changing, but I think we're bypassing a lot, and skipping more in a quantum way to healing with this laser.
Will you give some specifics of that case without mentioning names? But, because I think it was so remarkable that I just want people to hear, these are the results that we're seeing clinically as we're applying basically these quantum theories into clinical practice, which is phenomenal. So this was a patient with a Parkinson's diagnosis.
Yeah, rather advanced Parkinson's, and then different history of like really bad motor vehicle accidents, childhood trauma. So she, even her manner of, she's very sweet, but even her manner of being and kind of her reactions with her husband and everything, always extremely sensitive. And of course, there was some rigidity, tremors, even voice was off. And then seriously, after the first one, and then even the second one, which was just intranasal applications with the laser, she laughed on the phone. She's like, I'm seeing the trees differently. I'm like, well, hold on, are you okay? She's like, no, I'm actually seeing the color of the trees on my property in a beautiful way. I'm like, wow, that's great. She's like, hold on, let me tell you more. And she's saying that she had pizza and she tried it and ate it and enjoyed it more than she had in over a decade. I'm like, well, that's a win. Sure.
Yeah.
We'll take that. And then she says, my left arm isn't flailing around erratically every once in a while, and I have more control over it. I'm like, whoa, okay, well, hold on. That's like, these are all huge things that can happen in months, but you're telling me within a few weeks. And then also when her husband is running the dishwasher, who apparently he's a little noisy with things around the house, and it would freak her out and upset her in the past, but it didn't even bother her now. She was just okay, settled,
Wow.
calm, more like herself. Even just those things are profound and remarkable, because when we get any semblance of who we were in that more calm, coherent way, I mean, that already speaks volumes. But then we have some of the more objective things too, with like her sense of smell and the more fluid movements with her arm. So yeah, I'm up in arms, and she's super excited about it. And she still has some other treatments to go. So I can only imagine, like,
And this was not even on a full treatment, right? This was a partial treatment for what we typically do. So that piece for me is like super exciting, of like, wow, well, that's interesting. Right. So that component, it really does speak into what the power of this frequencies are. Like, if you change your frequency, you can change matter, which is, it's contrary to what we've been taught. because we're not taught about thinking in frequencies. We're taught about, like, going from point A to point B, and then you draw a line. Well, there's time involved with that. Well, if you kind of put them on its end and go up in frequency, you can start affecting change in the mattered world there's no time involved with it. That's where the miracles happen. That's where miraculous change can happen here in short periods of time, if not instantaneous. So, I think as we get this word out, as more and more, it's kind of like the 4-minute mile, right? When before Bannister ran a 4-minute mile, nobody could run a 4-minute mile. And then this guy breaks the world record, runs a 4-minute mile. And then the next year is like 20 plus people ran that, like just like that. So I'm excited. We are living at an amazing time where we're now getting to see these changes happening, and it's accelerating, just like the expansion of the universe. It's not a constant expansion. It's an accelerated expansion. So it is basically mirrored in, what happens in the macrocosm happens in the microcosm, right? Another saying that we have grown up on as Chinese medicine practitioners. We're now putting those kind of esoteric concepts into clinical practice, which is so fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo.
Have we
all right. I think, the component, I think what comes up when you start talking about this is our analytical minds. So I want to bring this concept in of, people might be sitting there in disbelief going, these guys have really lost their rockers now. Like, listen to them just kind of go bubbly gushy on this stuff. But, the component is we don't have to understand how. In this quantum reality, there's no predictability there. So it's not like some formulaic, like, this is how you do it every time. So you have to step into the unknown, which the unknown is, and this is what all of the great traditions are talking about, is the eternal present moment of now. We have eternity in this moment now, where we can't have our past or the predictable future. We can't have the predictability in the now, because once you step into that eternal now, that present moment, which all of the great traditions do talk about, right? Like, you can't live in your past, you can't project into the future because those don't exist. Only thing that exists is now, which is eternity when you really tune into that. So you don't need to know the how. You have to suspend the how. That analytic mind, which I love my analytic mind. I love reading research and seeing the p-values and, all of that. Like, give me numbers. I love that stuff. And at the same time, we're just seeing changes that in that Newtonian model, in the Newtonian physics model, matter to matter, they don't make any sense.
Yeah, it transcends that. And you know what? Sure, if for those that need to rely on it, science will figure it out as it's been doing. But I mean, I still can't explain exactly how a microwave works, and I occasionally have to use it, right? It's a cheap example, but like, yeah, it's all right. The how is already being done, whether you understand it or not, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that component, I guess I want to leave folks with maybe a practical component. This coming fresh off of a meditation retreat, but we've heard this component of future tripping. So it's around the component, like maybe there's something in life now around your health that is not agreeable to you. You're in suffering, you have pain, anxiety, depression, maybe PTSD. There's not, you're not happy. Can you suspend that for a moment and think to your future self where that doesn't exist? And if you think just for a moment, like take a breath, envision that future self, you in the future without the suffering, without the pain, without the depression. Maybe you're more joyful. You've got free mobility of your body. You're not waiting for that other shoe to fall. You're like content. You've got deep peace. You're just, grateful for another day on the planet. Go to that future self and envision yourself there. Like, what are you wearing? What's around you? What, is the sun up? Who's around? Any smells? Is there a breeze? Maybe there's a slight breeze. Maybe life feels just perfect there. And as you turn back, you're there. I mean, that's you right now, looking through your future self's eyes at you today, and just see yourself there and just love on yourself. Just know you're doing everything you can with what you've been given right now, and draw yourself from today to your future self. So as you envision through time that you in the suffering state is coming to you in your future self, and just welcome yourself in there with open arms. And just know, if you're able to see that future self, that in the quantum field, that is a possibility, and that possibility exists for you today. So I wanted to leave you with a little bit of hope, and actually a technique that is showing to be quite potent for folks, of looking at their future selves, because that future self in the realm of no time, no thing, no body, no where, that exists for you today. And we can make it happen. I'm not saying that is easy. It could be easy. If you want it to be easy, it could be. But I also know sometimes it does take some work, because we have been programmed. We've got this program, this old program of survival, which has kept us alive as a species to this point, but it isn't really serving us in the long run now, when we look at levels of illness and disease that are happening out there. So, I want to leave you with that. I'm excited. Give us some comments about what this brought up. Maybe you just totally disagree with us. Put it in the comments. Maybe it totally resonates with you. Put it in the comments. We want to hear from you. We want this to be an interactive show. The only reason why we're doing it is for you. Well, we like to talk to each other as well, but it is, we want to, we signed up to be physicians and in the healing arts to serve and to help people. And so let us help you. If you don't know where to start, get in touch with us. We do complimentary consults. Like, we'll do 45 minutes if you qualify for care, which means you're willing to kind of get out of your think box and step into the unknown with us. We're willing to help. So, get into the conversation with us. We do complimentary consults. Email us, call us. You can find us online. You're watching us here now. And I just want to say, one, I'm grateful for Dr. Nadal, because he's really stepping in to the doctor's chat and What the Health, and my lead physician in Oregon, as we start this fleet of 8 clinics around the globe. So much gratitude. I'm also grateful for all of our listeners and viewers out there, because without you, we wouldn't be doing this. So if you liked our show, give us a 5-star review. Tell people what you learned and share it with them, because that's how the change happens.
Awesome. And thank you, Dr. Eckel. Let's help them get there, right?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, everybody. Here is to a great day, great week. Dream big. And we will see you next week on What the Hell, the Doctor's Chat.
So then, bye.